Sekeres and Price for Thursday, June 13th, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center in downtown Vancouver. And if you're heading to a game in downtown Vancouver, why not make it a staycation? Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price, Grady Sass, hitting switches, conducting things. Big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in Surrey has the 2024 Pathfinders. It's summer. You want to get out there and have some fun. Do it in a Pathfinder because it can handle it. Lease or finance it from 2.49%. Jump into a Pathfinder today at Applewood Nissan in Surrey. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today. We're asking you, should the Canucks be interested in Patrik Laine? Vote yes or no. Sekeres and Price on our Twitter or X and YouTube channels. The one-time apple of the NHL's eye as a goal scorer. And for those of you old enough to remember, the kid was electric. He burst onto the scene, scoring great goals from distance, one of the best shots in the league, a flamboyant personality and performer on the ice.
And a shot to behold.
Oh, my God. Like, honestly, like Brett Hull, Al McInnes, like Alex Ovechkin, like he's in that company of shot.
Yeah.
Needless to say, Patrik Laine has fallen on some harder times since then. First of all, he didn't want to be in Winnipeg. He was shipped off to Columbus, of all places. It has been a most dysfunctional franchise. There was some early success, though, in Columbus, not to be discounted. He had a 56-point season in 56 games in 21-22, and he was 52 points in 55 games in 22-23. Now, hasn't played 82 since 2018-2019, and last year played just the 18 games with 9 points, 6 goals. He continues to be in the player assistance program, but according to Pierre LeBrun, the report is now that both Laine and his representative in the Columbus Blue Jackets are working towards a trade. Laine wants a fresh start.
He's only got 2 really tough seasons. One is the weird pandemic season, which was tough on a lot of people, with the 21 points and 10 goals in 45 games, and the one that just passed.
Yeah.
But the 2 Columbus seasons in between are almost 40-goal paces. And he's at a point per game in both of those seasons.
Right.
So you don't have to reach far back. We're talking last year, he had 22 goals, but only in 55 games, and he had 52 points.
And we know how starved the Vancouver Canucks are for goals off the wing. So I voted yes here. Needless to say, with some caveats.
Well, due diligence.
First and foremost, the due diligence and homework. The Canucks have to be comfortable with Patrik Laine off the ice. They have to be comfortable with Patrik Laine on the ice. He's just 26. I mean, it feels like he's been around forever. He'll play all of next year at 26. So we're not talking about an old guy who Father Time has already snatched up in his clutches. Now, for everyone who says he's not a Rick Tocchet player, understand this is not a hard on the forecheck wall work type of guy. But I would ask, do you need all 8 wingers that you're dressing nightly to be that guy? Do you not have some room for a guy who can be that scorer? It's a huge salary. It would have to be offset. The thinking here is, could you send them Ilya Mikheyev and something else to consummate a deal? Tell Columbus what you gain here is cap space and a B prospect or a mid-round pick. And it's a contract that lasts 2 more years. So not entirely onerous, although if he didn't figure his stuff out next year, you wouldn't be happy about that second year on the deal. If it's just interest, yeah, I think there should be interest. I think it behooves the Vancouver Canucks to explore this situation. This is a buy low opportunity here that could pay off in a huge way. So I voted yes.
The old adage that Ray used to say, though, about players that didn't play the 200-foot game is you better score a ton of goals to offset that fact.
Yeah, but he can't.
And
like,
so
that's the thing.
He's in that vicinity
Right.
of being a guy that could do that.
Right.
So,
like, this isn't Nils Höglander here, you
No.
know, or Boudreaux talking about if you're going to be that player, you'd be score 35 goals. Like, this is a guy who could score 35 goals easily.
Ray used to make that joke about Kovalchuk. Like,
yeah,
Kovalchuk didn't play defense. Doesn't matter when you're scoring 50 and putting up 100 points. So, Laine flirts with those two fronts.
I remember interviewing Don Waddell, who was then GM of the Atlanta Thrashers, a few months into Kovalchuk's career, and he said, "Look, he's not a defensive player. He will never be a defensive player. We don't care."
Our poll question is: should they be interested? Right?
It's should the Canucks be interested in Patrik Laine?
And the answer is emphatically interested. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's all we're asking. Not should the Canucks acquire.
We're not saying consummate a trade, move heaven and earth to get this guy. And if the bidding gets too rich, you bow out. Nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Yeah. But, rarely do you get a 40-goal scorer.
Well, that's it.
At a depressed value. And that's what that's the opportunity.
That's it.
Right here.
That is exactly it. Spot on, Blake Price.
And I've been talking about
you're contemplating spending $9 million a year for 7 years on Jake Guentzel to do that, knowing full well that the last couple of years of that contract he isn't going to be that guy.
Well, that was my next comment. Is we continue to debate this week about difference of true difference making wingers versus solid wingers.
Right.
There's a difference maker that probably comes at the cost of mere solid winger.
At his best, he is unquestionably a difference maker.
And you'd have to hope that he comes back to you in the best mental frame of mind that he's had in some time after being a part of this player assistance program.
Right.
That would be the assumption.
Now, if you start the homework and the early returns are nope.
Yeah.
He ain't right. That's that.
And there is, you don't want to think worst case scenarios, but down the road, if there are more transgressions and more visits to the player assistance program, I don't have the CBA in front of me, but I believe there's an opportunity to extract yourself from the contract entirely.
Well,
at some point
that's
too.
if he becomes Nichushkin and gets to the point where he,
So
there's multiple turns in the player assistance program.
Yeah.
But as of right now, you're a long way from that. And really for me, it almost pivots wholly on having Mikheyev go back the other way, because that's the offset of the salary that you require. In fact, you probably would ask Columbus to retain some even beyond that. But it also depends on what else you're adding.
So the net take really could be, an increase of $3 million on your cap here, potentially. If you take on $7 million of Laine, you're only.
So he's 8.7.
He's 8.7. Let's say you take on 7.5. The difference between that and Mikheyev is less than 3.
Well, 4.7.
Yeah. So
you'd be looking. It's roughly $4 million. I think that you would be looking at. Yeah.
So you've thrown a $3 million bag of money at Mikheyev, and he's magically turned into Patrick Laine. I think most people would do
now,
that.
The question is, what else are you going to need? And just a guess here, but with the cap going up and with Laine's track record, excuse me, I would bet there's a team that has less to lose than Vancouver that could probably beat your price tag, but I still think you get in the mix here.
Yep. And because of the players assistance program angle, there are some GMs that will have a wider tolerance of that than others.
Like if somebody's out there and thinks they're going to give up a first round pick, or an A- level prospect, okay, you tap out if you're Vancouver.
But there's also some GMs that are going to look at the chemistry in their room and say, I want no possibility of distractions.
Right.
And that might be the Canucks angle here too, of like the player, we like our chemistry. We're not messing with that.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of Mikheyev, let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Douglas. Frank Seravalli has added Ilya Mikheyev to his trade board and reports Vancouver has been looking to move him for cap flexibility to sign pending free agents. What do you make of that?
while we weighed all these possibilities, the part of the reasoning from Frank Seravalli on behalf of the Canucks is, hey, he's not damaged goods. It takes a year to recover from the AC. You know, they're actually trumpeting this apparently to the possible acquiring team, saying no, he'll be just his normal self when he gets back this year, because it'll be the 1 year anniversary of the surgery. So they could have that framework themselves in their mind of they expect him to fully be better. So if you expect him to be fully better next year, why don't you want that player? So that's a tough sell, but in concept, you know, can you do better than that player for $4.7 million? I think you can.
Mm-hmm.
I think you absolutely can. Like I think you can get Tyler Toffoli at very close to that number. You can get DeBrusk, as we talked about, for very close to that number.
Frank reports they've been trying to move him since the end of the playoffs, and even were offering him up at the trade deadline. He also reports that teams are asking the Canucks to attach an asset to Mikheyev, something the Canucks are balking at, which I agree with. Like, I'm willing to retain a little bit on Mikheyev before I'm willing to give up another asset to move him out, because I do think there's the possibility of a bounce back. And also, as we have discussed since the end of the Canucks season, you're weak at winger and you want to add speed. Well, when this guy's healthy and playing well, he's a serviceable winger who has speed.
Matt, if he makes $2.9 million, I don't care. I don't care about what he is. So
if he makes 2.9, I'm having him back on the team next year happily.
Right, but you can't do that, obviously. If only there was TAM in NHL, you could buy him down a little bit, but he can't do that. So with that in mind, I think you try and trade him.
Mm-hmm.
And try to find the $2.9 million version of him, you know, wherever that guy might exist. But yeah, I don't think he's not going to hurt you in your bottom six, but you're paying him like a middle six guy. That's the problem.
Yep. How's your Douglas mattress treating you, Blake?
It's keeping me cool during these hot summer nights. I haven't even turned on the air conditioning because, at night, as long as I can sleep coolly, that's all that matters. And that's what you get with the Douglas mattress. You can go get your own right now, douglas.ca/Canucks Army, and jump into the most comfortable mattress you could possibly imagine. If you don't believe me, try it. It's a 365-night risk-free trial. If you don't like it, you get a full refund. And by the way, they donate those mattresses to charities, the ones that do get returned. There's not many of them. Douglas.ca/Canucks Army. And it comes with a free comfort sleep bundle with a bunch of free stuff.
Elliot Friedman saying effectively there's a stalemate right now with Nikita Zadorov, that he is willing to take somewhat of a discount to stay, but the Canucks haven't budged off their number or their offer.
There's still a lot of runway here. Like 2.5 weeks doesn't seem like a lot, but in a face-to-face negotiation, it's actually a fair amount of time.
And I would not be at all surprised if the Canucks blink here.
Yeah, as long as the number starts with a 5, I think they might blink.
Yeah.
But I don't see them going above that.
Well, because in part, he was so good for you in the playoffs. He brings a profile that is very hard to acquire. And if we're talking about the difference of like $250,000, $300,000, like there's a penny wise, pound foolish argument to be made. Now, I'm sure they would like to get resolution on the Filip Hronek matter first, but I'm not sure you're going to have that luxury. And the other thing is I think the anxiety builds for Patrik Laine in the front office the longer it goes here, with two free agent defensemen who are such a big part of your program and success this year, Zadorov and Myers, and the RFA defenseman in Hronek, who is the far more complicated piece and the far bigger decision. You know, to be able to tick something off the checklist is something that I think would be appealing, particularly since you're probably doing Myers third amongst that group, because you're looking at how much you have left over for Tyler Myers, knowing full well he wants to be here in Vancouver. So Yeah, the longer this goes, the more I wonder whether Zadorov will be back, despite all the reporting. And I know there's been, a fair bit of will he,
and the more work that gets done, incidentally, Matt, and this almost should be the aim of the Vancouver Canucks. I really believe that the Canucks could start signing a bunch of guys, fill up a lot of their cap space, and then go to Tyler Myers and go, oh, sorry, man, we've only got $2.5 million left.
Yeah.
And then they still get him at that price.
Yeah. Blast from the past, an old friend, Lawrence Gilman, parted ways with the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, which is, of course, where he's been since he left his AGM post here with the Vancouver Canucks. Contract was not renewed 1 year into the Benning era. He had been running the Marlies operation. His deal was set to expire this month anyways. LeBron saying that he should draw interest. Of course, once upon a time, a weekly co-host of this program.
That's right.
Wednesdays with Lawrence, which so many of you gave us great feedback on. We thank you for that. And, we'll see. If he wants to be on the show, we'll have him on the show.
Yeah. Wants to talk hockey.
Yeah.
I think
well, I mean, now
that talking hockey.
Now that he's, allowed, basically, the Leafs under Shanahan and Dubas were very much a one voice team, right? Like,
yes.
Only the GM is going to speak. Even Shanahan didn't speak all that much. So it was the head coach and the general manager. There weren't others in the organization who talked under that program. Different regime there now with Brad Treliving, and not out of the ordinary to see, as Lawrence experience here with Benning. 1 year in, the new general manager, makes some decisions, brings in his own people. Jalen Chatfield, the former Vancouver Canuck who has found success with the Carolina Hurricanes, has re-signed, taking one of the right shot defense options off the UFA market. It's a 3-year deal at $3 million per. And we've referred a lot to the AFP Analytics group and how they go about predicting contract length and value. They had him at a 4-year deal at $3.65 million, which is interesting that maybe Jalen Chatfield left a little money on the table to stay with the Carolina Hurricanes. You can somewhat understand that, though. He's had such great success there playing for a coach in Rod Brindamore, who has a unique system and a unique way of doing things. And if it ain't broke, why fix it? The grass isn't always greener, particularly if you have to fit into a new system or a new team structure that is a little foreign to you. Anyways,
I think this is a fair, for what he is, I think is a fair contract, honestly.
Yeah, no, I know he's found success there, but he is still a third pair.
He's still what he is.
With no real ups. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's 28 years old, so we're not really talking. I mean, I suppose he could be that late bloomer, but we're not really talking about a guy who even has second pair upside.
I feel like we always do this with players, and every market's guilty of this, is that season ends and like weeks after the season ends, all of a sudden you have this filter over a lot of the players that had good seasons, but you make them great. And they're not all great players. Otherwise, that team would have won the Stanley Cup. Like, he's a nice player.
Yeah, I also find it interesting because AFP had him as a higher ranked defenseman than Chris Tanev. Now, a lot of that has to do with age. Tanev is 7 years older.
As an investment, maybe.
But I was reading yesterday, based on that Dave Poulin and Steve Stais meet and greet with the fans in Ottawa, that Chris Tanev, a player that the Senators tried to acquire, is still the type of guy that they're looking for. They seemingly forever has been looking for a right shot defenseman there. So I do wonder what the price tag is on Tanev and whether or not Chatfield settling for a 3x3 decreases that price tag, or if they're just teams so desperate for all the intangibles that Tanev brings that they're going to go out and hit his number. AFP has him as a 3x4.7 million player. So the right shot defense UFA market, Brandon Montour in Florida, still playing, of course.
Yep.
And a cup ring, I think, only adds to his price tag. Matt Roy in Los Angeles, Sean Walker in Colorado, Brett Pesce, as Blake's been talking about, in Carolina. Then it was Chatfield, and then you get into Tanev, Alexander Carrier, and then Tyler Myers. So this is actually a pretty robust right shot defense UFA crop. There's not normally that many serviceable guys that you can think of as second pair right shot guys on the UFA market. So one domino drops, still multiple dominoes there. If the Vancouver Canucks, for whatever reason, feel a need to go out and add another right shot defenseman alongside re-signing Filip Hronek or Tyler Mars, or whether they're moving on from either of those players. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Final in Edmonton as the series shifts to Rogers Place and the Alberta capital. So the Florida Panthers decided not to fly out Tuesday. Of course, game 2 was Monday. Decided to fly out Wednesday. And then one of those storms hit Florida. And you haven't seen rain until you've seen Florida tropical storm rain. Like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, downtown Sarasota was basically underwater yesterday. I couldn't believe some of the images there. 10 plus inches of water.
And they knew it would be a bit of a bitch to get out of South Florida to Edmonton. How would it affect the Florida Panthers? Gasp. They arrived 3 hours late. Or
3 hours and 16 minutes, Blake.
Or as we call it in the public realm, air travel. Like that's a good travel day if you're 3 hours late.
It's not a good travel day, but it's an understandable. It's a routine
travel day. I'm not going to feel bad.
So, well, they arrived 22 hours before puck drop, though. That's interesting.
That's by choice, though. They could have.
No, I know. Yeah. Well,
and they had want to go to Edmonton,
and they had a media available. I was tracking out a funny line on Twitter about that.
Spend as least time as possible.
Yeah, you mean they're choosing to spend their time in Florida, not Edmonton? And incidentally, there was some fun on. It's out there on social media on air traffic control, the Edmonton Tower.
Yes. Yeah, maybe you should run out of gas and land in Red Deer.
Land somewhere else, doing their best.
Well, this is, I saw this bill too, that this is Florida's first time out of the Eastern time zone in like 2.5, 3 months.
Really?
Versus in the playoffs alone, the Oilers have played in every single.
Which makes it odd. Which makes it odd in this regard because, wouldn't you want to get time clock adjusted?
That's what I'm saying. Why didn't they? Yeah, like you have another night.
I don't believe this would be sleep doctor approved. And they skipped the media availability last night, or it was canceled after they were late. I mean, it was going to be late in the day. I don't want to go too far down this boulevard because it sounds like media wine, and it is. But Mark Spector, it's a bad look on the NHL to open up in Edmonton with just one team here. The series moved north on Tuesday. The Panthers are part of this series. Do you think the NFL gets told by its teams when they feel like showing up? I was always under the impression that the NHL ran the Cup Final and did some degree of dictating in terms of you're going to be available, you're going to meet the media, we're trying to put on a show, and we want all that out there.
So no media availability until game day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not media.
That's not something that would fly in the NBA. That's not something that would fly in the NFL. No. This is our showcase. You have to be available each and every day in the contesting city.
Yeah, it's not a media wine in the sense that if you're the league, you want that team selling that game the day before.
Exactly.
So I think from a league standpoint, never mind from a marketing standpoint, you want them both there the day before.
Now, I know you got ratioed when you tweeted this last night, but Travis Yost of TSN Sports World needs an Oilers win tonight, or we're going to be watching Colorado Rockies Day baseball in a week max.
Yeah.
Already mentioned that on off nights. I'm trying to watch the Blue Jays through frustration.
No.
I'm not sure I can do that much longer.
No. Like this would have been argument to begin the Copa today. We would have had.
Hey, tomorrow Euro starts.
Yeah,
you get Germany and Scotland, and then
on
Saturday you get a triple header each and every day. Henceforth, not to mention with Copa games, you can get like a quintuple header.
Yeah,
here in a while.
Thank goodness for that, because you're right.
Right.
If Florida wins, and you know what, it was a spirited NBA game last night. The finish was quite good, despite the fact that the Mavs put themselves in the hole there in the second half. But they ultimately fall short.
Yeah,
they're down 3-0. I don't think their chances.
No.
So
no. Well, and Luka has to stop feigning for fouls.
Oh my gosh.
Particularly when it's costing you on the defensive side of the possession.
Yeah. Well, his fifth foul was, at the other, beside the offensive hoop. Like, he just didn't need to do that. Like, he was just frustrated that he missed an easy 2, and so immediately fouled on D. Like, got smarter.
Right. Well, the good news for all our Mariners friends, guys like Farhan Lalji and Basketball Phil and whatnot, Rob Gray, you got a pretty good baseball team to watch. They got a big series coming up with the Rangers.
I'll say this too. They too, though, aren't the most entertaining team to watch.
Well, because they don't hit.
Yeah.
But at least they pitch.
And they do win.
So the games are over in like 2.5 hours, and they usually win. They're 40-30.
Yeah.
And they got the Sac White Sox tonight, who I'm sure they'll destroy. The Chicago White Sox are 17-52, Blake. 17-52.
That's unbelievable.
Like, and that's one of the things that's keeping the Blue Jays from deciding whether or not they're going to sell off here. You take a look at the baseball standings, and you have these super teams like the Yankees and the Orioles. Cleveland's been damn good too. Phillies in the National League. And then you have just absolutely some wretched teams like the White Sox and Oakland and Miami and Colorado. And so you have this like big schmozzle in the middle of middle-class teams. Like the Blue Jays are only 3 out of a wild card spot. 2 games below 500 and 3 out of a wild card spot.
Well, they were in the runner-up position after yesterday, I believe.
Yeah.
They were ahead of Boston and Tampa. They were in the runners-up position for the wild card.
Oh, I know.
Incidentally, the Mariners, back to the Mariners, they have a 6.5 game lead in the division.
Yeah. No, they're and with a chance to put even more distance here with this Texas series. So anyways, yeah. Maybe just one more basketball game. Maybe just 2 more hockey games. I need more.
You want more hockey?
Certainly more hockey. And I know Canucks fans are cheering against the Oilers. That's fine. I'm still interested in seeing a more competitive Stanley Cup final.
This would be an interesting poll question.
And I think the Oilers will win.
Would you rather see the Oilers get swept? If you're of the anti-Oiler sentiment, would you rather see them get swept, or would you rather see them lose in the heartbreak of Game 7?
Well, a sweep, I think, would create a more entertaining postmortem.
Right. Yeah, because if you lose in Game 7, we were that close.
We were that close. We've done that
Great
show.
game.
We've done that show. We did that show for a full summer.
Yeah. You run it back. You're that close.
Yeah.
If you lose in 4 straight,
I think you still run it back, because what are you going to do? Start making changes with Draisaitl? No.
Interesting.
He's got 1 more year on his deal. You hope he resigns. If he doesn't, you still run it back. I mean, unless somebody utterly knocks your socks off. And speaking of, and it seems like every time we go down this road, it disappoints. But the Senators at number 7 and the Devils at number 10 are quite ready to trade their first-round draft pick. And top 10 picks don't move a lot in the National Hockey League. It's possible that 2 of them could move this year, with both teams hunting goaltenders. And, of course, that's Linus Ullmark in Boston. That's Jacob Markstrom in Calgary. Maybe UC Saros in Nashville. Kings, Leafs, and Hurricanes may also be involved in the goaltending market. Martin H.S., and we've talked a lot about him, the Carolina winger, RFA. Pierre LeBrun reports basically the entire league has reached out to the Hurricanes on him, and that Carolina has winnowed down to about 5 to 7 teams that they think have what it takes to get the deal done, although nobody has met their asking price yet. The name checks there are Chicago, Calgary, Winnipeg, Boston, Montreal. No word of Vancouver, although Seravalli in the past has said the Canucks are in on HS, but they don't necessarily think they've got the right pieces to make the deal. Then there's Mitch Marner, who's number 1 of top Seravalli's trade board. Vegas, apparently a possibility there. Is there anything more sickening than a Toronto Maple Leaf would-be superstar going to the Vegas Golden Knights?
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs are they're going to be interesting to watch as well.
Well, goaltender need there.
Defensive needs.
Defense need. Marner getting moved. Is Tavares?
No, you can't do that.
I guess you just got to hold on to Tavares.
Yeah, got to ride it out.
Okay. We got more information. Actually, let's run through more of the offseason stuff, and then we'll get to the TV side. Winnipeg's Nikolai Ehlers also available. Dreger links Necas and Ehlers and wonders whether there's a deal to be made there because Winnipeg is one of the teams that's in on Necas.
That makes sense for both sides.
Right, because Necas is going to come in this year on this RFA, in this RFA situation, cheaper than what Ehlers is going to come in. Is that next year? I believe it's next year.
Ehlers got 1 year left at 6.
Right.
And then he's UFA.
Right. So you might be spending more on Marty Necas this year than you are on Ehlers, but going forward, you anticipate that Ehlers would cost you more money. And Winnipeg is also looking at some other guys that they have to re-sign going forward. So it may fit. Not to mention they got some UFAs on defense. So it may just fit their salary structure a little bit better going forward. There was also a piece on buyout candidates from Seravalli. Let me throw some names at you here that if they were to be bought out, would you have any interest? Can you believe they're talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois as a potential buyout candidate in Los Angeles?
It's a crazy buyout, like in terms of the length.
Yes.
But it's not a terrible.
And like this is the player who has wanted out of 2 situations already. So it sounds and has long expressed an interest in playing for his home province, Montreal Canadiens. Well, he was just 40 points in 82 games last year, 16 goals. It was not a good year, making $8.5 million. He's 25 and he can play the middle.
The largest cap hit in that buyout, there is a 3-year span of effectively $3.8 million. But that's the largest. So it goes on forever because how long is it? It's 14-year buyout. A 14-year buyout, everybody. Sit down when you hear that. But for the most part,
that's not just handcuffing your successor as GM. That's handcuffing your successor.
But 8 of those years are $1.1 to $1.6 million cap hits. 8 of them. So 8 of them are completely digestible years. 2 at the front, 6 at the back.
Which is why I think that he's even contemplated as a buyout candidate.
It's really only, what did I say, 5 tough years to digest.
Yeah. The Rangers looking at buying out Barclay Goodrow. It was 12 points just in 80 games this year, playing 12 and a half minutes at $3.6 million. His contract runs till 2027. He's 31 years old. Fell off the table. Jean-Gabriel Pageau with the New York Islanders is a buyout candidate. Again, that's another guy who can play the middle. Where if you're looking at third-line center for the Vancouver Canucks, and needless to say that they've gone as far down the road trying to get Elias Lindholm re-signed here, tells you that they are looking at third-line center, and he's a right shot, and that's something they don't have. He was 33 points this year, 11 goals, played all 82, played nearly 16 minutes a night at $5 million. His contract runs till 2026. He's actually interesting for me. If he gets bought out.
Yeah, maybe.
It's the right sort of profile. Right shot, checking center. Isn't a zero offensively. He's a little bit there. A more veteran guy. Torrey Krug could be bought out by the St. Louis Blues, who today made some news. They announced that Doug Armstrong will be handing over GM duties to former player Alex Steen.
And we are officially old when the second generation of Steens is now in the front office. Like, Thomas Steen was one of my favorite players as a kid.
I remember.
Now his kid is in management. Very depressing.
Boy, his kid was a player. When you looked at everything, like the different value that Alex Steen brought, like as a point guy on the power play, and
Oh, much like his dad. His dad was the same way.
Yeah.
Like, never a gaudy scorer, but serviceable
just,
scoring and an all-around
like
player.
a Swiss Army knife type of player.
Yeah.
Yeah. Krug is now 33. He's a left shot defenseman. And he's small. So I just don't.
But in a big defense core, like if you bring back a Zadorov and you guys still have all the
left side guy,
I don't know,
play two lefts, a small left side guy. I don't think so. And this name was interesting to me only because he has already been bought out, and a massive one. But Ryan Suter, with 1 year left at $3.65 million, he's 39 years old now.
Yeah, no, thank you. Now, the other quality of player that people have brought up is leaving ELC level player that is failure to launch a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Capo Kakko was brought up. Kakko just signed 1 year extension with New York Rangers at $2.4 million, the same number that his qualifying offer would have been. So it's a kick the can down the road situation for the Rangers, or they sign into this deal so that an acquiring team feels a little bit better about their certainty for their cost certainty for next season. I mean, I don't think you can roll out a Capo Kakko trade now, but they don't need to do it. I mean, it's a fair enough number for Capo Kakko for the New York Rangers.
Yeah.
But there are others in that same sort of boat of, we thought it'd be better here after your ELC's up. Do you believe the player will still develop?
Yeah.
Look around the league for those players.
Well, let me ask this, because Lafreniere was a little bit failure to launch, and then this year he sort of launched, right?
Yep.
Kakko was picked 1 year after him, if I'm not mistaken. No, 1 year before.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Forget about it.
Yeah, it's they've long had this run of players that you're kind of waiting for everything to come together with Hedl and Kakko and Lafreniere.
I forget who it was, but there was somebody we had prior to that draft with Kakko who just went, I'm just not buying all the love. Like saw that he was a big, strong, strapping guy, would be power forward, but just didn't. And, those do take a little longer. Forget who it was. Who was like
Rasmussen? Was it that far back? Rasmussen?
No. One of we had an evaluator on who was not as bullish on Kakko.
Oh, I see.
As the industry going into that 2019 draft. That was 5 years ago.
Yeah, I'm surprised when I see Lafreniere. I knew he had a good year. He got to 28 goals.
He had a very good year, and then was pretty darn good in the playoffs too, Blake.
Yeah.
Look, the Rangers had some guys go quiet at absolutely the wrong time. Their best players, in fact, Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad. But, young Lafreniere had 8 goals in 16 games, 14 points. And that was after going 0 in 7 playoff games the previous year.
In a 16-goal season. Like, he figured it out.
Yeah.
And he's going to be 23 in camp. So, there's another put Lafreniere into that file of players that just needed time to get there.
And we have been talking about the Canucks, and we have been talking about the Carolina Hurricanes as a couple of teams that are going to be very interesting to watch this offseason, because in some cases the UFA and RFA factor, in Carolina's case because they keep banging their heads against the second round ceiling, or I guess they've been to the conference final once. Is that team ripe for just a retool to see if they can get up and over? In the Canucks case, more so in terms of the learnings and how do you process and take the next step after being a round 2 team from out of the blue this year. Don't discount the New York Rangers, because that's another team that I think, much like Carolina, has to look at itself and go, okay, is this group ever going to get up and over? They've got a number of 30-year-old forwards, 30-plus forwards on that team. Trocheck, Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad, Goodrow, who just mentioned, not to mention Trouba on the back end, who's, an older 30 with a lot of miles on him. Plus, they have a crazy owner, right, in James Dolan. So who knows what the Rangers are capable of this offseason? They could be quite active on the trade market.
A couple of those old guys have 3 years left, and Goodrow's got 3 years left. Kreider's got 3 years left, but they're not trading Kreider after all of his heroics.
I wouldn't think so, but
and he's got
who
no move,
knows?
so it's It's in his court anyway. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
All right. We've been telling you about it for weeks. The Daily Faceoff Playoff Parlay Challenge. You go to games.dailyfaceoff.com. You sign up if you haven't already. You get a drop-down prop menu. You make your selections on that night's game. And I say game now because we're singular. The winner that night gets a gift card. The winner of each round gets straight cash. Blake Price has been playing for us. What do we like tonight?
You have to think the Oilers show up.
I think so.
Yeah,
I
have
think so.
to. So I'm taking the Oilers.
I think so.
Taking the under. This series has proven that the under is the safer bet.
I think I said it Monday. I'm going under until proven otherwise.
That's right.
That's right. In this series.
Oilers have been very good at scoring first for the most part, so I'm going to take the Oilers to score first. Highest scoring period, the second period. McDavid assists on the under because they keep giving him 1.5, and I think he's a 1-1 kind of performance tonight because I think he scores a goal tonight. Take it away from his likelihood of an assist because I think McDavid's going to go team on my back.
This is the night, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a must-win game. You can't fall behind 3 buzz. You're the best player in the world. You're on home ice. You should get the favorable matchups. This needs to be the night where 97 shows the world who's boss. So I'm entirely with you. In fact, I would almost, I'm almost tempted to go over on that assist prop.
I couldn't figure out how to go back. I accidentally hit the over on Barkov, and I'm locked in there. I would have taken the under because who knows what his health's like.
He was on the morning ice, as was Tarasenko. So,
but is he the same player?
We anticipate that Barkov is going to go.
Goals on the under for Sam Reinhart with a mostly Oiler night, and obviously McDavid on goals. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah,
let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta Bar, 50 West Cordova. And look, before you go to the football game on Saturday, stop by. After the football game on Saturday, stop by. You're looking for a place to watch the football game? It's around the corner. You'll hear the roar of 51,000 perhaps. And the arcade. Check it out, 50 West Cordova, GretaBar.com. Patrick Johnston's going to join us. We talk Mikheyev. We talk Zadorov. We'll talk Lindholm. We also talked to both of our guests today about the debate that Blake and I got into a little bit yesterday. And that is how best to deploy your cap space for the Vancouver Canucks, particularly up front.
Weight it to top-end players or spread it a little bit more into the middle.
Yeah. I'm on the side of you need multiple wingers, so spread it out. Blake's on the side of go get the finisher Guentzel.
Or the like.
Well, the like. The like is Reinhart. Unless you're making a trade.
Right. Yeah, unless you're making a trade.
If you're on the free agent market, it's those two guys, then your next class of wingers. If you're on the trade market, perhaps you're aiming a little higher than the middle class. I don't actually know where to situate Patrick Laine right now.
Traditionally a high-end guy,
right.
But who knows? I think Ehlers is a high-end guy too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I haven't heard anything connected.
Laine may be a little bit column A, a little bit column B right now.
Yeah.
But again, you have to check out the off-ice stuff with Laine first and foremost before you enter that sweepstakes. Rob Williams also going to join us. And, yeah, we talk Laine with him as well as wingers Guentzel and volume or quality. Let's get to our Bet365 bets of the day. This segment presented by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. As I mentioned last week, early in the CFL season, there's typically so much player turnover. Typically takes teams a little bit more time to gel than a couple of games, and particularly on the offensive side of the ball where timing between quarterbacks and receivers is so important. So I'm still in the mode of taking points on CFL games here until we sort things out a little more. And that puts me on the Red Blacks tonight, plus 7.5 at home against Winnipeg. And that puts me on the Stampeders at plus 8 here Saturday against the Lions.
Interesting.
The other games, there's a 4.5 point spread, a 1 point spread. I'm not going to go there, but I'm going to take the touchdown plus with the two bigger underdogs this week 2 of the CFL.
Okay. I'm going to look at the possibility of an Oiler win in tonight's game that we talked about. And McDavid gets just a little bit too tough to reel in for points. It's asking to get real value. You're looking at 3 points, and I don't like that. So I'm going to go down to Draisaitl or Bouchard. Take your pick here. 180 plus 180 for a 2-point night for Draisaitl, plus 260 for 2-point night for Evan Bouchard. So
Draisaitl is what? Plus
180.
And I like the Bouchard value, but I'm far more
confident.
Yeah.
Because it's going through their best 3 players tonight. En route to victory, I think that's the way they do it, is the 3 best players.
Is he playing Draisaitl separately from McDavid tonight, or at least to start? I know he has been.
I'm going to bet that they play a lot together tonight.
Well, typically he's put them together when they need a goal.
Yeah.
When they're chasing the game. But only because without last change, Florida may have Barkov on Draisaitl a fair bit tonight, right?
Well,
you may not get the match.
The Oilers the last change, so they get to.
But that's what I mean. Yeah. Is that Knoblauch can keep McDavid away from Barkov a little bit more tonight, and maybe that means Barkov's on Draisaitl more. But yeah, give me the German.
There you go.
Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets, so whatever the sport, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Opening that account, use code VANBONUS, all together, all one word. Patrick Johnston is next.
In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova.
Arnold Palmer designed Whistler Golf Club, reminding you that tee times for any time during the 2024 season can be booked online now. Get those tee times reserved well in advance to avoid disappointment. And if you have a group of 12 or more, enter Arnie's Army Golf Getaway, where you and 11 friends could play for free. Blake and I played the course on Monday. It is in spectacular shape. If you've never played the Whistler Golf Club, you owe it to yourself. All the beautiful views, vistas, plus a very challenging test.
That's where the pin was on that green when we played. It was right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, didn't do well on that hole.
That par 3 on the front side with the dramatic green.
Yes, that one's tough too. A lot of tough greens.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of tough greens.
To book a tee time or to enter our contest, visit whistlergolf.com. Here's Patrick Johnson, beat reporter, Canucks beat reporter for the Province and Post Media, who joins us now. Hello.
Hi. Unlike Edmonton air traffic controllers, I'm on
that was fun, huh? That was fun. And all the pilots joining on in.
That's why having a Canadian team involved is fun.
Yeah. Okay. The big story today, Frank Seravalli reporting the Vancouver Canucks are actively shopping Ilya Mikheyev here. They are trying to get rid of the contract in order to sign free agents. What do you make of it, and what do you think the success rate would be here?
Well, I mean, it's not a surprise. He's a player that got hurt, has not fit, did not score, makes a lot of money. The success rate on that last item, or the last two, because of those last two items, I suppose, make it pretty hard. I suppose, again, there was a universe that we used to have where you could have called Arizona and said, hey, can we do a deal? We don't live in that universe anymore. But
yeah,
there are teams that still need NHL players. If you're San Jose or you're Chicago and you've got some cap space to spurn, Columbus, you got some cap space. Say that 10 times fast. Yeah, maybe there's a deal to be made. I mean, obviously, you're paying someone to take your problem away.
Yeah. In what sense? In retention or sweetener?
I think you're sweetener because you don't want to retain anything. I think you want that space because you look at the guys in front of you. You want to be competitive on Guentzel. You have a dream of retaining Zadorov and Lindholm, right? Like, or those types of players. Even if it's not those guys, it's those holes with that amount of money, right? Like you're trying to find ways to create more space, even more space to work with than you already have, for some very high end things, because you are trying to figure out how you can make yourself as good, if not better, than you were last year.
Prospect or pick sweetener?
So good question.
Well, my instinct was pick. I don't think prospect, sure. I just, going back to the deadline, they didn't want to move Lekaramaki. They didn't want to move Willander. They didn't want to move Pettersson. There's not a lot beyond that of any real value. So I have to assume you're talking about pick. But then again, you're not talking about picks till next year. So real future, real futures. Anyway, unless you get something, unless you make some deal with involving Hronek and on and on and on and on. Listen, there could be other options here. There could be other ways to make these things work. But if you're just looking at the simple math of it, that's what I see.
Well, and let me just challenge you on this.
Always. Let's go.
All right. Gloves off here. Johnson, Queensberry rules. I fully concur that retaining is not ideal for this coming year, because somewhat defeats the purpose. Like, you're trying to get rid of as much money as you can. But to listen to the commissioner, and this is one where I think you can take his word for it. Cap going up to $88 million this year. He sees future cap growth as well. I think that's pretty certain. I don't think retaining next year is going to be as problematic. And you look at everything draft and cupboard wise with the Vancouver Canucks, no first, second, or fifth this year, an additional 6 for what it's worth. No third next year, no third the year after that. And of course, coming off a draft where you did not have the full, I shouldn't say you didn't have the full complement of picks, because you made 7 picks, but you didn't have a second rounder this past year either. I'm more inclined to retain, given that it's, you're not retaining a huge amount here, at least I wouldn't hope so, than to further deplete the future cupboard. No?
I mean, the future cupboard continues to be a problem. So it's you're trying to win now.
To that progress. Yeah, well,
like, that's the thing. You're trying to win now. That is the task of the GM at all times, right? The task of the GM is to win, and more often than not, that comes at the expense of the future. So in the end, I think the equation really is about trying to optimize what you had last year, recreate what you had last year, and then make it better. And you're literally looking at what's in front of you, because in the end, you look at a guy like JT Miller, he has 2, 3, 4 years from now, he is not going to be as good as he is right now. Like, that's just the reality. He still may be pretty good, but the odds are that he isn't. So you have to play what's in front of you right now. You have Quinn Hughes for 3 more years. You have Thatcher Demko for 2 more years. Like, the way everything is set up, you are finally emerging from the cap mess, and that is what your focus is. So whatever the consequences are, you're trying to optimize as much space, cap space as you're right now. That is where they put themselves. Whether you are a believer in that or not, I don't, that's the reality. The other thing to remember here too is that I really have come to the conclusion, and is that the way the draft has shifted, and I'm going to write about this sometime in the next couple of weeks before the draft comes up. The way the draft has shifted, late round picks just do not hit almost ever anymore. And I think the Canucks have figured this out, and I think they see that late picks are things that teams do see as currency. Whether they feel the same way that the Canucks feel about them is irrelevant, but they're not worried about moving a 5, 6, 7.
And in isolation, I wholeheartedly agree. It's the compounding. It's the critical mass of moving picks out as much as this franchise has over the last 10 years that I think has gotten you to.
But you also have to recognize your window, right? You have to recognize where you are, and now they're in the business of acquiring NHL talent,
right? And they got a 2-year window here. They do not have a draft pick from the last 4 years that has played an NHL game. And to Patrick's point, in terms of the last late round pick to do anything for the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, I guess it's Shilov's to a degree if you're considering the playoffs this year as a 6th round pick. But previous to that, you probably have to go back to Adam Gaudette, and even Adam Gaudette, was a marginal NHL player. Although that Forsling guy seems
there was that guy too. Let's go to the poll question here, because it may be related to Mikheyev to some degree, if Columbus is so interested. But should the Canucks be interested in Patrik Laine? And, if you constructed that being realistic with Columbus's needs, what do you think that looks like?
Well, I think that's a relationship that has not gone in a good direction.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta think, the talent is there. He's scored goals, right? But I think that's the problem, is that that he does that and not much else.
Mm-hmm. You'd love to have a chat with the guy, wouldn't you? Because you need to know commitment to his recovery, commitment to his refurbishment as a player. He doesn't seem like a Rick Tocchet guy.
No, that's the thing. You just said it right there. Like, is it a headache what are the odds that it doesn't prove to be a headache?
Well, it's only 2-year commitment, so it's not like you're signing up for a long run of this.
No,
but I hear you.
But how do you get out from that? Like I just don't see it. Like it's just there's just so many red flags on this one. Going back to Winnipeg, the way that ended, the way it's gone in Columbus. There's a lot of talented guys that have come through hockey that just didn't quite have it, and he's at the top end of talent, but not an uncommon story in terms of just not quite getting it. And I suppose if you, like you said, if you could talk to him and sort of get a sense of what might be there to dig out.
He does score 30 goals blindfolded. That's the
thing. And you do have to think about, like, you are going to have to thinking about what's your Brock Besser plan, like what's the succession plan? Is he here? Are you committing to him? He's played great for you. Is he going to keep being that? Can you afford him? How does that equation work? But I'm not sure. I'm just not sure that's, I mean, I know you never say never. I always say this like, you never say never. I'm just not sure he's a guy that there's a stuff lining up.
Not a first blush. No.
Yeah.
Zadorov.
Do you think the Canucks will blink? What's so funny?
No, it's just, he's been, every day. I just don't think anything's changed there.
Do you think they'll blink on Zadorov?
Canucks? I don't think so.
He's going a little bit towards them, right? Like they've made their overture saying, look, we'll take a little less.
I go back to last week. Like, I wrote the story about, I was ready to write a story about nothing's happening. And Milstein nothing was happening. And then the story kind of evolved into, he said,
mm-hmm.
And nothing changed, but nothing changed. Like the fundamental truth was that nothing has changed. They know their positions. I just, and I think about Rutherford when I talked to him on Friday, and he obviously is very cagey. He's not going to give anything away, but was clear from that they are not expecting anything to shift. But as everyone has pointed out, takes one phone call. I just don't think. I think they've set out their stable. I think they see what they see. If you're Zadorov, as I've said from the beginning, same as Lindholm, why wouldn't you see what's outside the door? What's Vancouver's interested in. They may move on quickly, but you are also a bit of a unicorn in the type of player you are. It is worth it for you to see as a player in his position for the age he's in, to see what's outside the door. And unless the Canucks made an offer that completely blew his socks off, and that hasn't happened.
But wait a second, I thought it's not blow my socks off. I thought it was get close to my market.
But
price.
that's what I mean. But yeah, but that's what I mean, right? Like he may make oh yeah, wow, that's what I really wanted. I just think he's going to look out the door. I think I think the term, it's about term and it's about AAV, and the Canucks have come close, but in the end, let's see. I think they're just at let's see what's out there.
Good Spice Girls reference there, Peach.
I missed it.
What you really want.
All I want. We've been in a fundamental debate here, and it can be for Laine figures into this, other free agents like Jake Guentzel as well. Are you a quantity or quality acquisition guy as the Canucks get towards July 1st?
Lots riding on this answer, Peach.
Yeah.
Quality.
Which Christmas party are you invited to?
No. I don't like the way the question was phrased. It's leading. Do you believe they are so complete a team that they just have to go out and get that scoring winger, or do you think they mean multiple?
I don't
pieces?
like the way you phrased that.
Well,
question.
there you go. So now he's got two questions.
What's the question?
He can choose to take your leading one or my leading one.
A volume
Guentzel or two wingers adding up to Guentzel.
A volume of middle class or
again, upper middle class.
Upper middle class. Okay.
Like, so if Guentzel's the first line winger, do you just go and get two second line wingers? Is that what we're saying?
Right, or two to three, yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you go get a $6 and $3 million winger, or do you go pay $9 million for Guentzel?
Okay, that's fair.
And are we classifying Pius Suter as a second line winger?
No.
We're classifying Pius Suter right now as your third line center.
I understand that, but would you consider him as someone who could be a second line winger?
No, I would think preferably you're trying to upgrade.
So so you're getting an upgrade on Pius Suter. I mean, I think realistically,
the $6 million winger for sure is an upgrade on Pius Suter. The $3 million guy may or may not be. Because
the $3 million guy is a replacement for Joshua.
Right.
So I mean, they're clearly going to look for a replacement for Joshua. So now it becomes back to: do you want a $6 million guy or an $8 million? Like, Guentzel is a guy they've sharpened their knives for. Is that the right analogy?
Sure, I get what you mean.
They're ready to fight. They want him. They want they clearly want the guy. But this comes back to the Mikheyev question, because they also would like to find a replacement for Mikheyev. So there's your $6 million guy, but if they can get off Mikheyev, that's why you're trying to do it. So you can get so what the real answer to the question is, they want to have their cake and eat it too. Like that is really what they want.
Well,
And everything I've heard behind the scenes about Alvin is that, but this is what there's this belief that they at some point are going to take it. Like Rick Tocchet already made the analogy, but they're going to make some big swings. Like they have tried a couple times to make some big moves some really dramatic changes to this lineup. In the end, didn't happen. I don't think that has shifted, though. I think this is a management team that continues to think big to see if they can make big changes happen. And in this case now would be essentially adding to the roster. You're not, in the old days, that 2 seasons ago, that was moving Miller, that was moving Besser, maybe even moving Garland this year. But like those are guys they don't want to move now. So now the big swings are looking in free agency and finding the most optimal use of the cap space you have. We
always see pieces trying to gauge the temperature of the craziness going into the summer for trades and for signings. Soboshinsky did a piece on this, and there's a sense that this is going to be, because of the salary cap going up, a bit wild and woolly. Do you buy into that, and that the Canucks will be able to be one of the big fishermen, if you will, in the sea?
Well, I mean, I talked about wanting to take big aggressive swings and see what they could really land some big fish. I do think the underwriting philosophy remains that they need to be smart in how they spend their money. I think they know that there's going to be, at some point, you're going to have to overpay. But it's about picking who to overpay on and how much you overpay.
Do you think they want $3 million in cap space going into the season too, just in case?
I mean, I think about like the Pullman problem, and he is there, but because he's on he doesn't have to go on LTIR, right? Like their ideal is that they could accrue some cap space this season.
Yeah.
So how you line up your roster, ideally they start the season with 3 million cap space, because then half a million of that would be unused space, because 2.5 of that is going to Pullman.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that's realistic. I think they know at the end of the day that they're just going to have to spend that money that's there, because that's how competitive things are going to be this summer. I'm going to be honest, I haven't looked and see who might be a free agent or a deadline acquisition. I haven't looked that far ahead. I've been focused more on this free agency stuff and all the top line stuff, and we're all hearing the same stuff. So there's nothing standing out other than I will point out that I've been talking about Hronek for several weeks, and other people just started talking about it on Tuesday. So
we've been talking about Hronek since he got here.
No, but in terms of the will they trade him? I mentioned this.
Well, I
may
put it this way. I think posturing that they drafted line is the right way to go.
Yeah.
I have somewhat of a doubt that is a firm deadline. But I understand why that's preferable to have something done. Guys, the path of least resistance is one I think one should really consider when trying to forecast what a club is going to do. And the path of least resistance for the Vancouver Canucks is signing Filip Hronek as opposed to trading him, and bringing Nikita Zadorov back and saying, okay, we feel good about our defense, Myers as well, and say, we still feel good about our defense.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if either player is back. What I'm more interested, or what I find more intriguing, is that you listen to Alvin's comments about 3 centermen during the course of the year and in the year-end presser.
Yeah.
And you juxtapose that against 7x7 and trying to re-sign Lindholm. It sounds to me like the general manager has a firm idea that he wants to be 3 deep at center, which, for me, okay, you're probably not in the Chandler Stevenson market. That's probably a little too much for a third line. Are you in the Matt Duchene market? Are you in the Sean Monahan market? Are you in the Alex Wenberg market, the Adam Henrique market? Like, that next tier of center is what interests me, particularly if they don't land a Guentzel or don't land the $9 million winger. Is that fair, Peach?
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair view on it. The other thing about going and looking at your 3C is that it's not something you have to commit to long-term necessarily. You could look at it. You could look at an older player who's only going to be here for a year to try to do the Ian Cole thing. That guy doesn't, part of the rationale with Suter was the thinking was, and he played very well, and he never really got a run as 3C with the way the lineup ended up being. He could very well do it, but sure. I mean, to go back to the original point, like, can you find Suter's good? Can you find someone who's better than Pius Suter? And of course, you want to find that guy.
That's an Adam Henrique, isn't it? He's 34. You can give Adam Henrique 2 years.
Like, that's the kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about that, like Tyler Johnson, there's guys on this. This is me just speaking out loud. This is not anything I heard, but like Wenberg, like there's an interesting list of guys in that range that will be out there and available potentially as a number 3 center. So the point about that, Alvin was very clear on what they saw, that they recognized how useful that was for them and how valuable that was in the playoffs.
Once again, you've made us smarter. Thank you for this. Happy anniversary. Give our best to Candace. Okay.
Thanks, boys. All right.
Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. golfnorthlands.com.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the Nat. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
Joined now by the national editor of the Daily Hive and the Offside Sports vertical, Rob the Vroom Vroom guy on Twitter. Rob Williams, fresh from the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal.
Are you going to change your beat?
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be bad. Send me to Monaco and
True, travel's good. Yeah,
Bahrain and all the rest. Be a good way to see the world.
It's the best beat in sports journalism. You get to every part of the world and some really cool cities. So, yeah, welcome back. Glad you survived the rain there in Montreal. We're talking Vancouver Canucks here, and first, Rob, you see two paths here as they enter free agency, and in fact, it was paths that Blake and I were debating yesterday. So tell us the roads taken here and the road not taken from the Canucks heading into free agency.
Yeah, I think there's a philosophical decision that needs to be made here, and I'm really curious to see what Patrik Laine and the Canucks are going to do. So, if you look at what they did 1 year ago, it was all about volume and value, right? They grab Susie, Cole, and Bluger all on day one of free agency. That does a lot of things. It gives them more depth. It makes them better. These are guys that brought a certain Rick Tocchet style to the team. They were able to help them on the penalty kill. And I think that was something that was much needed for that team at that time. Now, fast forward to today, is that going to be the same path? Like, are they going to just try to find value picks and short-term low-risk deals, or is this the time to go and find another piece of the core, another piece of the puzzle that can make you a Stanley Cup contender and give you a foundational piece of a Stanley Cup? I'm speaking mostly of a guy like Jake Guentzel, and if you look at what most Stanley Cup teams have, the Canucks have a lot of the main pillars that you would look for. They've got the Vezina level goalie, they've got the Norris Trophy D, they've got two top centers, they've got a scoring winger. What are they missing? They've got Hronek, I think, is another bona fide top four defenseman. They probably need at least one more. They definitely need a top level winger and maybe a couple, right? But they definitely need one more. And this could be the opportunity, to get a guy like Guentzel. You're gonna have to pay probably $9 million, probably, long term. Like, I don't know if it's 6 or 7 years. So 7 years pays him until he's 36. But there's the Pittsburgh connection, there's the Tocchet connection. Is that a guy that you can convince to come to Vancouver? That might not be available every single year. So I do wonder, is this the time to really go for it and then try to go cheap in other areas and hopefully, as Alvin said, find the next Dakota Joshua?
Well, we had this chat yesterday.
We had this debate yesterday.
Yeah.
And see, I'm on the more depth is needed, more volume and value. You're not quite there yet.
And I was on the difference maker side.
Blake's on the difference maker side. Rob, which side are you on?
I think, there's risk on both, right?
Yep.
You can go for the mid-range guy and end up with Ilya Mikheyev. You can try to go for one of the big name guys and end up with Louis Eriksson, right? So I do see risk on both ends. I think you want to have as much certainty as possible, right? If you bring in a guy like Guentzel, you know him, that this management group knows him, Tocchet knows him, he's likely to fit into what you're doing. It was, similar, I think, to what they were thinking when they brought in Lindholm. Rutherford knew him well. I think you just want to make sure that you're not bringing in a guy that's going to fall off a cliff. You don't want a Jonathan Huberdeau situation. Is a guy like Sam Reinhart, is his values at an all-time high right now? Like, are you going to be paying for, top dollar on Sam Reinhart when in a totally different situation, he's, he comes crashing back down to earth? You want to make sure that if you're going to swing for that home run, that you at least hit a triple, right? Like, you can't commit big money and big term and then just be regretting it a year or two later. So I think if you've got some mid-range guys that you feel really comfortable with and that you think can really be difference makers for you, and you add a couple second liners rather than the one first liner, then I can see it. But it's such a hard thing to say until you know the dollar figures, until you know like what the offers are. But Jake Guentzel to me is very, very intriguing because I think he's exactly the type of player that they need.
I honestly think Sam Reinhart might have made himself $3 million this season per year.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because if he sets a career high at 35 goals this year, I mean, what's he making? He's making Guentzel money,
right? If that, probably not that. Yeah,
it's crazy.
See, my point about adding Guentzel, like, take a look at the Leafs. Top heavy, paying all the forwards, have been good enough, really, even to get to round 2, other than one time. Look at Edmonton right now. Even with Draisaitl and McDavid, top heavy, down 2-0 in the Stanley Cup Final. I know Pittsburgh previously won it as a reasonably top heavy team, salary structure wise. When I think of Tocchet style hockey, and I think of more depth through the lineup with a healthy Thatcher Demko in the playoffs, I just think that's a better route for these Vancouver Canucks.
These are strange times, though. Like, the multiple games in these playoffs, the Edmonton Oilers haven't got to 20 shots.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, what are we even talking about here? They're a top-heavy team with 2 of the best offensive players ever born, and they can't get to 20 shots someday. So I don't even know what we're arguing for in terms of what the Canucks need in terms of difference makers.
But doesn't that tell you something? That, because Miller and Pettersson are not those guys.
No.
So I have.
But you do need some offense. You do need to be able to score the goal,
which is
and
why I'm for sort of sprinkling it more through the lineup and creating a little more depth and trying to win defensive games.
Or do you just flush it out, Rob, with like a top or a 6-man defense core that is par excellence? Do you sign Hronek and sign Brett Pesce and leave the forwards alone and get $3 million forwards to sprinkle through the top 9?
It's such a tough decision. I do think when you look at the list of free agents that there's more wingers available probably than anything else. There's not a ton of options when you're looking at centers. There's not a ton of options when you're looking at D. So I do wonder if you're going to pay through the nose for the few available guys that are there. It was interesting the path that they went on with defense this last season. And I was really concerned about their defense coming into the year. And you look at what they did where, I think after they got Zadorov, I kind of thought, geez, they might be okay here. And they had a top pairing, a legitimate top pairing. And they kind of had like two B pairings, like second or third line. How many of those other 4 are bona fide top 4 defensemen? You can make the case that they're like, I think you had like 4 guys that were really like a 4 or 5 guy, right? Rather than a 3 or 4. So I thought that was very interesting. Yeah, like what's the best fit for Pettersson? Is it Guentzel and find somebody else like Höglander or Mikheyev, somebody and that's your second line, or is it can you make it up with like a Teuvo Teravainen, Tyler Toffoli, like some sort of mix like that? Can you get those 2 guys for kind of the price of Guentzel?
That's it.
That could be a better second line, but again, you've got to take into account a lot of different things here. Toffoli would be age, and the guys that are like 28, 29, they're probably going to command a lot of term. Is that the way to go?
And you're not getting faster, right? They mentioned speed a bunch of times. Besser is not fast. If you got Besser and Toffoli as your top 2 wingers, neither of those guys can skate.
Which brings me to Patrik Laine, Rob. He is available for trade. Now, he is still in the player assistance program, but he is available for trade. He wants a fresh start. Both the agent and the Columbus Blue Jackets are working to make it such. He is still a big ticket, albeit just this coming season. And one more, and he might be an offloading ground for the Ilya Mikheyev contract. What do you think? Should the Canucks be interested in Patrik Laine?
I think Laine is an intriguing player, and there's big, big potential that what if just he's been in not a great situation in Columbus. What if he leaves that, comes somewhere else, has more talented players to play with, has a better center to play with? He hasn't really had, a ton of help there in Columbus. What if he's put in the right situation and he explodes? And if that happens, you look at, Laine's, he's not going to be, I don't think Columbus is not going to give him away, but his value has never been lower. Like, he's never been more affordable to acquire in his entire career than right now, I would argue. But in saying that, what do the Canucks have to give up?
Yeah, they don't have a middle prospect. Right? I mean, I guess a Ratu would be, or a Podkolzin along,
something like that.
Something like that.
Who are the prospects that you're excited about coming to the Canucks right now? Like Lekaramaki and Willander, I guess.
Overpayment. That's overpayment for
and that's
you're not going there. You're not going there.
And that's too much. But then if you look after that, like you said, there's nothing really after that.
No.
You look at their drafts from like recent years. Like they have given up a lot of draft picks. This upcoming draft, our writer Noah Strang put together a piece. Like, they're at the near bottom 5 in the league in terms of draft pick value coming up at this draft. Like, they just traded their first round, and and this is the rub for when everyone was excited about getting Lindholm, and I thought it was a maybe a worthwhile gamble at the time. But you give up your first round pick there. You don't have that chip to play this offseason. They gave up futures to get Zadorov. They made a lot of those moves already, on short-term moves. And hey, they had a great season and made a nice little playoff run. But you can't make that move every year. So I think that's not a luxury that they'll be able to afford right now, unless there's roster players that can make it happen. And I don't see a fit for players that Columbus wants right now.
I think you'd be sending them Mikheyev and saying part of what you're getting on this Columbus is the cap space over the next couple of years.
Go shopping.
The difference between Laine at 8.7 and Mikheyev at 4.7. So you'd be giving them nearly $4 million per cap space per season, and then you'd be attaching sort of a middle, a mid prospect or a middle round pick, and say, there you go. May not be enough. Someone may be head over heels with Patrik Laine, think him, still the 40 goal scorer or even 30 goal scorer previous in his career. But, I think it's worth exploring. I agree with you on that.
Is it going to be like Mikheyev, Shilovs, and a third round pick? Is that like the new Raymond Ballard in a second?
No, because Shilovs is your backup goaltender. I don't think you're going there.
You capitalize on a guy like sort of a Hunter Brestevich kind of trade in Kirill Kudratsev. Do you attach
Minio or EPD or as you say, Ratu? If they believe in puck goals, and I think you have to look at that as well. So I think there's different concoctions here. Not sure it's the combination that's going to get it done, but it's worth exploring.
But let's just roll down. Are you okay with the risk of the player? Because you could come here, you could go right back into the player's assistance program, and you could have nothing to show for the trade. Are you okay with that risk?
I think you need to do your homework on that aspect and have some level of comfort about what you're doing.
Ultimately, if it gets too out of hand, of course, you can terminate the contract too, right? So you do have that as an extreme.
If Columbus is ready to give him away from Mikheyev plus a C prospect or something like that, like, absolutely take the risk. That's a really talented player. He's still young. He's very, very accomplished in his career. If you think that you can put him in a position to succeed in Vancouver, absolutely, I'd take a swing at that. I'm just concerned about what it's going to cost to get him and what you have to give up.
And those are fair considerations. Rob Williams, just want to invite you over to my crib, 6 a.m. for the next F1 race. Okay, coffee, bacon, eggs will be served because I know you're such a convert now. And we'll talk to you on this show.
Sounds great.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.